Drums have this notorious reputation for just being loud and cacophonous and noisy and other synonymous terms, but it's totally possible and downright necessary to get the tones of the drums and cymbals to blend together more seamlessly using the delicate expressive element known as dynamics. If you've never heard that term applied to music before, dynamics simply refers to the volume at which you're playing. Dynamics are used to further shape rhythms and control the flow of energy in music. If we think of a rhythm as a block of marble or a lump of wet clay, then we can think of dynamics as the tools needed to sculpt that rhythm into something more expressive. While people typically think of drums as being loud and only loud, truly skilled drummers are able to play really quietly too. Ideally, we want to be able to play extremely quietly, super loud, and everywhere in between. So if you're playing sounds like this, but you want it to sound more like this, then you'll need to build up some control over your dynamics. I'm always impressed by drummers that can play really quietly, since playing quietly requires so much more precision and control over the sticks. So we can even think of dynamics as an extension of technique. Being mindful of our stick heights, holding the sticks a certain way, and striking the drums and cymbals with different parts of the stick will result in a wider array of inflections and dynamics. While dynamics in general are an enormous topic, we're mostly going to focus on just a few elements: crescendos, decrescendos, accents, and ghost notes. A crescendo is a gradual increase in volume. They really help build up energy. So in lots of songs, there will be a bit of a crescendo going from the verse to the chorus, for example. To practice, start by playing 2 measures of 16th notes on just the snare drum, and begin playing as quietly as possible and gradually increase the volume until you're playing as loud as possible by the end of the second measure. To play super quietly, we need to use really tiny motions. My sticks start only 2 inches or so above the drum at really low volumes and gradually lift higher the louder I play. Small motions give us small sounds, big motions give us big sounds. After playing on just the snare drum, move your hands to different sounds to explore the dynamic range of each part of the kit. Let's try it out. So we could build up the volume, but how about bringing it back down? A gradual decrease in volume is called a decrescendo. We could use a decrescendo to pull back for quieter sections of a song. To practice decrescendos, we'll do the opposite of the exercise I just demonstrated. So I'll still have 2 measures of 16th notes, but I'll start as loud as possible and gradually shrink to a distant whisper. Now, playing quietly does not mean playing without intensity. Keep that in mind. So don't slow down or lose your drive as the volume recedes. To tie crescendos and decrescendos together, I'll play a groove at a medium volume, something that kind of feels like the verse of a pop song, and then I'll play a fill, which will be 1 measure of 16th notes, but all crescendo. Then I'll play a groove with a bit more intensity for a few measures, and then I will play another 1 measure fill, but I'll decrescendo through that fill to get us back down to our original volume. Okay, so that covers building up and pulling back the volume, but drummers often need to play with a variety of dynamics simultaneously. Since a drum set is really a collection of instruments and not just one thing, we need to balance the dynamics of each part of the kit we're playing. The appropriate dynamic balance of a drum set depends on the style of music it's used for. In backbeat drumming, the kick and snare really drive the feel of the groove, so they should be more prominent than the cymbals. But in swing drumming, it's kind of the opposite. The feel is primarily driven by the ride cymbal and the hi-hats, so the kick and snare should sit beneath the cymbals dynamically. Like, a straight-ahead rock beat sounds terrible if the hi-hats are the loudest part of the groove. And swing drumming doesn't really swing as hard if the kick and snare trample the cymbals. To add more shape to our drumming, regardless of musical style, we need to use dynamic elements known as accents and ghost notes. Accents are strokes that are played louder than your median volume, and ghost notes are strokes that are played quieter than your median volume. When I play backbeat stuff, I almost always use rim shots to play accents on the snare, so I hit the center of the drum and the rim at the same time. The sound quality of a rim shot really cuts through the air, so it's easy to get a loud sound with relatively little effort. To play ghost notes, I use super tiny motions to keep the volume really low. Ideally, ghost notes should be more felt than they are heard. They're an extremely important but subtler element of solid groove drumming. To begin incorporating ghost notes, add a ghost note on the of beats 2 and 4, and when you feel like you got those locked in, add ghost notes to the E of beats 1 and 3, and when you feel like you have all of that locked in, add ghost notes to the and of each beat. So you'll actually end up playing 2 consecutive 16th ghost notes within each beat. Try to keep those ghost notes as quiet as possible so they don't interfere with the backbeat. You could also play accents on the hi-hats to break up the cymbal rhythm a bit. To accent the hi-hats, I'll hit with more the shoulder of the stick to get a fatter articulation and a bit more volume. To demonstrate, I'll play 16ths on the hi-hats, but I'll accent certain beat partials to change up the feel of the groove. Balancing dynamics and combining accents and ghost notes are crucial for getting into that flow we all know and love. But it takes a long time before these dynamic nuances become second nature. So try to keep dynamics at the front of your mind whenever you're playing, and with enough practice, you'll achieve a much higher level of expressive ability. If you like what you saw in this video, check out my Patreon page. Your support grants you access to transcriptions for this video, as well as transcriptions for all my other lesson videos. And follow me on Instagram at drummerhar to see more videos of my playing. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time. So much cat hair all over me. Where'd all this cat hair come from? I've only worn these jeans twice. There's so much cat hair all over me.